webinar, well, only just this afternoon, I guess, really. So thank you very much for those that are attending, and I hope that you find this a worthwhile session here, and that you actually come away with this with something valuable for yourself and have a little bit more of an understanding as to how to actually use these upload facilities for importing learner data, groups or educators into the assessment tool. And we will have sessions as we move through where we can stop and listen to questions, but we will move on for now. Just a very quick overview here. Over in the left-hand corner, you should be able to see a little image of myself. That's certainly not the focus of this webinar, but always nice to see a face at the end of the screen there, I guess, as part of this. So over on the left-hand side, just above that, you will see a list of participants. So at the moment there's 33 people logged in. We may have more people come and go during the session, but that is where they are listed there. Then over on the right-hand side, as quite a few of you have worked out, there is the chat area, and you're very welcome to actually type in any messages there during the session at all. As I did mention, there is some people here with technical support. We also have several people here from the Assessment Tool Service Desk at NZCR. I can see Ben's just logged in there, and he will also be listening in and absolutely available to respond to any questions during this session if that's required. I will provide more information towards the end of this session just in terms of support that you can access for any further questions that you have in that area. Okay, so you may see a screen like this from time to time. There's not too many of them. It's a fairly short webinar, but it does give a chance, I guess, for myself also to stop and just take a few moments to read some of the questions that have come up on the side screen there and possibly respond to those as a whole group. So moving straight into, I guess, what the agenda is for today's session, you can see the very first thing there I would like to talk about is the some of the key advantages of using the upload function. Then moving on to how to actually create a successful learner upload file right from a very basic spreadsheet. And I'd like to start right from scratch in that area, because I think if you manage to get to grips with it and have some success in that area, then you can build on that knowledge and eventually make your files more and more complex as your needs grow with that area there. I will spend some time just addressing some of the possible errors that we have ourselves discovered there. So if you are frustrated because you found something just keeps coming up with an error for you, hopefully this might be a chance to pick up a few there. I will give a few Excel tips that would be useful for you, particularly, I guess, in terms of resolving some of those issues that can arise. And then towards the end of the session, I'd like to, I guess, build on the very first part, which is uploading a basic learner upload file, and perhaps adding in some more details there, so possibly groups that we could upload and maybe the educators as well. Right towards the end, just to point you towards a few places where you can access further support. For those of you that aren't able to stay all the way through this webinar, rest assured, or if you would like access to this PowerPoint, for example, all of this is available online at the Literacy and Numeracy for Adults website, and I will show you where all of those are located again towards the end. So let's make a start. Okay, just first of all, thinking about some of the advantages of using the upload function. This is a critical one, I think, increasingly so these days, where people are wanting to look at their assessment data and to know that it's a really clean data set and that you can rely on this information. So one of the key areas here, I guess, of uploading is that what we are doing is avoiding that manual entry. So as we all know, I guess no matter how wonderful a typer you are, we will often end up putting in mistakes. And particularly so when it comes to, for example, entering a learner's NSN, National Student Number. If you're having to type in a 10-digit code, and if you're having to do that 10, 20, 50, or say 300 or 400 times, that's not going to be anywhere near as effective as uploading the file. Of course, I think that's a fairly obvious one there, that once you put in the time now to get to grasps with how this works, it will save you an immense amount of time, and that's always a favour for everyone. I think also being able to rely on the data that we've uploaded. This is increasingly important when, even within this assessment tool, we can start to look at reporting progress over time. And to be able to do that, what we need is two data sets, time point 1 and time point 2, and both of those have nice, clean clean data and matching NSNs so that the reporting we gain from that is actually true and correct. So I think that's a really valuable reason to put the effort in to learn this process. And again, this is another critical one for most organisations have a student management system or an SMS, and the ability to be able to upload or import and export data between the two systems is increasingly important so that you can have your data within your databases related to your needs there. So again, by uploading, if you've uploaded data that comes straight out of your SMS, you can be 100% sure that the data that comes back in with your assessment results will also come back in successfully. Okay, just during today's webinar, what I will be using is what we call the training environment. That's the URL written there in fairly large print. We strongly recommend that all of you actually use this as a starting place, kind of like a sandpit or a place to explore. You have absolutely no worries whatsoever if you do a whole lot of mistakes or it doesn't work out, or if you do things wrong and wish you hadn't. This is the place to do that kind of experimentation. Your access to the site is exactly the same as the live production site, so you use your same ESA login details there, so that makes it fairly easy, and the URL is different, and it also shows up in a different colour. So I will get to that shortly and show you how to get there in an easier way. I think I've been through that part really. This last point here is I think really important for people to realise that we would actually encourage you to use the real NSNs of your learners. There's no worries about any of that data being carried over or anything. It's totally separate, and I guess what it does is it allows you that ability to be able to test your files out. If you know it's worked within the training environment, then you could move forward into the live production site. So I will move into that training environment very shortly. This is the first part that I would like to demonstrate of creating a successful learner upload from a basic one here. One of the main differences that I will be using today is I'll be working in Google Docs spreadsheet, and that's purely just for the ease of being able to present this data over a webinar platform. So yourselves would use this most likely within Excel, but in effect it will be exactly the same. It looks the same, and there's only minimal differences in that today there. I will go through and talk a little bit more about this right now. So what I'm going to do is actually move over to a website. So just give me a second. What I do actually have to do is swap between the webinar interface and then the browser interface. So you should now be able to see I'm on the Literacy and Numeracy for Adults website there, and this is a much easier URL to remember, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this area. If we scroll down here, right in the centre there is information about the assessment tool, and there is actually some links that are right here. So if I was to click on this link, for example, that will take us straight to the training environment. And you can see there clearly that training environment is actually blue, and so quite different to the live environment. So my first step here is to click here and log in via ESA. I have to be very careful on this bit. I very nearly, fingers crossed, I very nearly went over my 3 limits just before this session, so I was beginning to think, hope I can get through. Okay, most of you will most likely not be asked this question. If you're associated to one organisation, then you just go straight through. Again, some of you may and some of you may not get asked this next screen where you actually have to choose a role. Some of you will be organisation administrators only, and then if that's the case, you would go straight in again. I'm making an assumption that probably the majority of people in this webinar today are organisation administrators, and with that task of being able to maintain, manage students, create groups, and of course what we're doing today, uploading the learner demographics. So the first area here that I would recommend is just going straight to the administration tab, and this is where we actually upload the files. Now there is a reason why I've come straight to this tab, and that becomes clear when we start to think, well, what am I going to do next? So obviously if we need some support, if you were to click on the help function over on the right hand side here where the mouse is, you should see that if we click on that, you actually get information that is directly related to the whole upload functioning that we're talking about today. So that's really useful so that you're not chomping through different web pages or trying to find exactly the spot you're after. Go to the administration tab first and then click on the help. The one here is very useful for us today, file format for bulk uploads. There is, as you can see, other information, but let's go straight to this area. And I would really strongly recommend that people, rather than just try and create an upload file right from scratch, actually work from one of these samples and then possibly edit that, which is what I will be doing today. You can see there's a lot of options there for sample files. We'll start with that first one. Just before I disappear, there is some useful information further down here, particularly with relation to the ethnicity codes. I've clicked on that and you should see they're all listed there. So these are the DMU, Data Management Unit from the Ministry of Education. These are the codes that are used across the tertiary sector and the schooling sector. And some of you will have student management systems that provide you the descriptive information, and you may need to convert that to the codes. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So just coming back now to this learner upload file, if we right click on this, save link as, there's several ways of doing this. So I'm just going to save that file now. In there I had already saved it. Okay, now if you were to go to your desktop, you would simply double click on that file and the file will open up in Excel. I have it here. I'm hoping you can see this. I might just try and make that a notch bigger. That's probably a little bit clearer for you. So this will be what the file looks like as a sample file, and I'll just go through and talk about these sections here for you now. Every one of the upload files will have various sections to it. So this very first section here is what we call the organisation section. It's just these two lines here. This number is your EDUMIS number, or like your organisation code, and this would be actually the only thing that you would need to change if you were to upload this file for your own organisation as a practice run. So I'm just changing that there now to 6430. That will be for the NZCR login that I have. It says here 1. Essentially that's just saying there's one organisation, and that would stay always as it is. This next section you can see is a list of the learners there that you can see. UID, that stands for user identification or user ID, and that just continues to grow. So if you have 1,000 learners to upload, then it would just go right through to UID 1000 there. This column is potentially used for yourselves with your student management system. May have an ID code that you have. This column here has the NSNs, the National Student Number. This is compulsory, and if you have one of these wrong or missing, then you will have errors within your file there. Some of this next area here is fairly self-explanatory. You've got your surname, first name, gender, date of birth, email. Over in this area here, you will see there's a series of numbers. These are the ethnicity codes. It's not compulsory to have all three for a learner. That is at the discretion of the learner when they enrol, but that option is certainly available. So you can see the last two here, they're New Zealand European, and they just have that ethnicity only and not any others. The last part that you have there is the true-false, and that is actually just a question. Again, that's optional, but you may have the information as to whether a learner is English-speaking first language would be true, or if not, then it would be false in that area there. So that's the basic file. There's nothing else below there at this stage, and so we've simply saved that off the help desk. We've changed the EDUMIS code there. I could go File. Now in Excel I would go File and Save, or Save As. In this one we need to save it as a CSV, separated values file. I'll just choose that to save. And what I would actually really recommend you do is just make that one change yourselves, and then come back into the assessment tool, into the training organisation, have a look for that file. It will be this one, and click open. This is where you always have your fingers crossed that you hope it works, particularly when you're giving a demonstration. You can see there we get a message just below the submit button where it's telling us what was successfully imported. So we only had the 5 learners and they've come through into the assessment tool. So just let me drop back to the presentation. So I guess that was a quick run through this spreadsheet here. Just to recap that very briefly, so logging into the training environment, you have been sent that address, or you can get to there from the Literacy and Numeracy for Adults homepage, going straight to the Administrator tab, clicking on the help, downloading that file there, so from the file format uploads, downloading the CSV file, and just editing that one part from there. If you wanted to explore further, this is actually a very good idea as well, is actually to start replacing some of those details with your own SMS records, and we'll move into that a little bit further shortly. And then obviously saving the file and uploading that. So I will actually stop at that section there just for not very long at all, maybe a minute or so I can have a brief read of the questions through there. But please, if you do have any questions at this stage, type them in there. Otherwise, it might be a quick chance for a bite to eat if you're having your lunch during the session, or perhaps you're waiting until the end. I think most of the questions at this stage, some people cannot see the file. Apologies for that if you haven't been able to see all of the screens that I've been presenting in there. Rest assured that all of the screens are available for download at the end of the session in that area. So I'm hoping that's a help for you. Okay, I'll carry on for now. Thank you for some of the feedback. I will keep going. I'm sure you don't want to sit and wait forever. Okay, this next section here really is addressing some of the possible errors that you may have come across yourselves. Some of these may make you tear your hair out, but once you get, once you get an understanding of what it is or why, then it's fairly easy to resolve. So this one is a fairly common one. It's also one that the service desk team have had from a number of organisations there. So when the tool is, you're uploading it and they're saying there's an incorrect number of columns, and then you might look at your file and say, no, it's got exactly the right columns. Can you see the yellow highlighted part there? And there's additional commas after these last 2 users here. What the tool relies on is knowing exactly the number of commas that are allocated to each learner, so that then it knows to start a new learner for the next line. It's just part of databases and the way they work, particularly within websites. So I will actually go through a demonstration of how to sort that out very shortly. This is another very common error that can often be missed. I've done it myself several times, where you actually use a sample file, you get it all set up perfectly, but then you forget to change the EDGMIS number that's there to your own organisation, and of course if that's the case, that won't work. And for good reason. We don't want to be uploading the wrong data to the wrong organisation. Just a couple more errors that do come up from time to time. This one here, the row count in the learner section does not match the number of rows in this section. You may or may not be able to see that one there. This says rows 55. Now, that needs to exactly represent the number of learners that you have listed below that. So, for example, if you have 4 learners there, then that row's number should be changed to saying 4. This is exactly the same for the group section, for the educator section. The number in that top row of the section needs to exactly replicate what you have underneath. This sample here is, well, there's a couple of areas here that are demonstrated. This one's particularly related to when you upload a file, and through the validation process, the website or the software has actually found that the NSNs either aren't correct or are missing. the file will not upload successfully, but it will provide you with an error log that can be really useful. In fact, it tells you exactly what the issue is. So you can see here, these two NSNs, they're not valid NSNs, that they need to conform to the, I won't go into it, but it's what's called the modulus 11 format, so that that is a valid NSN. And then these last two here actually didn't have an NSN at all, and so again has thrown up that error. Okay, so here's some of the tips you will see if you're missing these commas and you need to create them. There's a little bit of a trick that you can do within Excel and here where you're actually putting an equals sign and then the two quote marks. Now I know that sounds a little bit quirky, but that works absolutely beautifully. So I'll just give you a quick sample of that on their website page. So if I come over now here, let me see, missing commas. I've got this blown up fairly large so you can see it, so I will scroll down. This section all looks absolutely fine here, but you will see if I was to upload this, there's a very high chance that this educator section here will come up and say you're missing commas, sorry, not enough columns. So if you type in the equals, then the two quote marks, that's actually all you have to do in that area there. So I'll do that again, equals, quote, quote, and you can see it sitting there. It does hide itself, but if I was to click on it, you could see in the formula bar that's sitting there. All I would need to do then is actually drag that through the areas and then also drag that down, and that would cover. So then when we went to each of these cells, they would all be covered in that area there. Likewise, I could drag this down. Some of this sort of thing's actually a little bit easier to do in Excel, but there you go, you can see there's commas in all of these cells now. So if you put that through that whole section, save the file, that would solve that issue for you. So let's just come back to the webinar and just bringing back the, here we go. This is another useful one. I won't demonstrate this one, but sometimes you might have downloaded some information from your SMS and they won't actually be stored as number fields but possibly as text fields, and that can at times cause some difficulty. The very quick solution there is to click and drag over all of the ones that are text fields. You'll have this little icon pop up, and if you click on that you can select convert to number and solution is right there for you. That will be fixed. There's various other ways of doing that within Excel, but possibly that's the most straightforward one at this stage. This is also another very useful tool within Excel where you're actually using possibly Control H or the edit and replace function. So for example, you may have in your SMS all of the genders listed as male, female, boy, girl for example, and if you need to convert those, select all of them, Control H or find and replace, and just change it to the actual required information that is needed. So for the gender, it's a capital M and a capital F. There's various other columns where sometimes you can apply that same kind of system, which can be useful. Okay, this one is using the Vlookup. I hope you're not all running away in fright at this stage. This one's incredibly useful as a formula, particularly for converting the ethnicity names, you can see a list of the names there, into the actual codes. So I have written a little bit of information there for you. The Vlookup, the very first part, the lookup value is actually what you have and what you need to convert. And it essentially talks you through when you put this together. The table array is the list, so it would be like the MOE list that you could download and use. The column index number is really just saying which column that you want to look up when you make the conversion, and then always type the word false at the end of this formula, and that will actually then make this work successfully. So I do realise I've gone through that fairly quickly. I'm going to give a demonstration of that. So let me come to, here's quite a good example where you will have your learner names and then their ethnicities. So to get these codes, I I will start typing in this formula, equals Vlookup. Straight away it pops up, does the same in Excel, tells you what to do next. So the search criterion, this is in this case this is the field Tongan that I want to convert. Comma moves me on to the next area. The array, I can click on a different worksheet or a whole different spreadsheet. Select these two columns, so it's looking up this first row, finding Tongan, and then it needs to represent what the code is in return of that. So comma, put a number 2 because it's the second column, and then as I mentioned, just type the word false. Fingers crossed I've done all that correct. Yes, that's worked. You can see the formula there, but you can see now it's also looked up and changed that into 331. I can now drag that down this list there, and you can see all of the relevant ethnicity codes have been converted to what we need within the assessment tool. So that's a useful process. It does take a few times to get the hang of that and to practice that, but once you have it, you should find that really fairly straightforward. Okay. And I'm sorry if that horrifies you there. The reason why we can't accept the actual description name is because every SMS vendor presents those slightly differently. So for some, that may just say NZ. Others might say NZ Euro or New Zealand European or Pakeha, and it's not possible for the computer to have a complete list of every single possibility. So that's why the codes need to be used. Let's keep moving through here. Okay, I will actually go straight on to adding additional groups and educators. So it's building on what we've done in the first section, and I'm hoping that you find this useful in terms of exploring a little bit further. Here we go. I will move back over to the computer screen. This is quite a challenge for me, jumping from one place to the other, so I hope you're able to follow through. Let's, for example, one of the first things that is actually quite useful to look at is this kind of file would be very typical from what you would export out of a student management system. So you may be able to get all of this information just in a big column. For example, your IDs, names, gender, ethnicity, email, and so forth. It may be, if you're lucky, that you can export your ethnicities in this way, or maybe you need to convert them first. But we could use this. We could use some of the information that we have from the sample files and start building up a bigger picture. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to actually copy this first section. We'll start right from scratch. So I'm copying the organisation section. Let's just go to a new tab here, paste that in. That's correct as it is. That will work for me. The next section that I need to start building up, remembering, needs to have a header row. So let's actually just copy this. This is the learner section. I'll put that here. I've left a space in between that really is just for clarity of the different sections. Now all of the users have UID1, UID2 and so forth. I'll build that up shortly. We could then go to, say for example, your student management system, the file there. Now because I've got this larger, there we go. Let's select all of this. One thing you will notice is that we don't copy the header row. That just is left out of this upload format. So if I come into here, you can see where I've selected to paste this in, because we need to leave that space to build up these user IDs. So if I select both of those, same in Excel, you can drag down and it will just continue to number the files, the rows for you. So it should there come up and say we have now got 17 learners within this file. Now let's not forget, if we've got 17 learners, we need to change that to 17. So that's potentially a useful step for you to be able to do that area. I could actually go through and save this as it is and then upload, and that would give us just those 17 learners. Let's go a step further. Let's see if we can have a go at adding in some educators into this area here. So this is a good challenge for me. Let's take, for example, the educator row there. Tell you what, I'm actually going to backtrack a bit. One part that I have missed out, which actually would be comes first in the upload, is the group upload section. So, for example, all of this part here is the learner section, but we could actually give some space. You can do this equally in Excel. Let me just take that. Oops. Let's undo that. I'm just going to drag that down to there. Will do us. Gives us some space here to actually add in another section, which is the group. Sorry, I jumped over that. That was because that was not scrolled right to the top. So this group section, let's in fact actually just copy this whole group section. We can paste this in. We can paste that into there. I thought I had copied it. I'll go back again. Copy. There we go. Possibly let's add in another group. We could change the names of these, or GID 5. Let's say we want a numeracy group. 101 as an example there. We now have 5 groups, so we need to change that. And that would be there. Again, any of these could be changed to whatever you need them to be at any stage. So I'll just change that to sports for now, just as a difference. So what we have now within the sections is, I'll just minimize it so you can sort of see from a distance. It's quite difficult in that way. There we go. I know you won't be able to read all of that, but we have these 2 sections now, which is the group area and the learners. So let's go through download, CSV, fingers crossed I've done it all right. Save that file. Now if I come back to the admin tab here, this may have timed out on me. I'll just check that, because otherwise we'll run into trouble. No, we're still all go. That's wonderful. So browse, that's the 3rd file there. Open, submit. You can see this time we've pulled in those 17 learners from our SMS, and we have also actually added in the 5 groups in that area there. So again, you can see how we started to build up some of the import file that should be useful for you. I'll briefly touch on adding another part to this, which is what I did start to do, the educator section here. Oh, I've done something quite unusual there. It's one of the challenges of working within a different file. Don't think that's quite right there. That's a Google spreadsheet area there. I can talk it through. What I could do essentially at that stage is to select all of the educator area. Again, this could be like an educator code. We have actually leaving this a space blank here, and the reason for that is because that would be a spot for an NSN, National Student Number. Absolutely fine to leave that. It's not relevant to the educators as it is for the learners, and then their email address. And then that would all be pulled into the file as well. Okay, let's come back to the presentation. So that, as you can see there, that's some of those 3 key areas. I'll just stop at this stage just to have a quick look to see if there's any questions. I'm sure that others within the team have been able to respond. Question there about the Vlookup. exclamation mark comes up automatically. Yes, there's quite a bit of almost default code that comes up when you're writing some of the formulas. So within Excel, you can actually use a wizard to talk you through the formulas, which for some people is a lot easier than just writing it as I did today. So that's another possibility. So by doing that, if you're inserting a formula, then that would talk you through those processes as well. Any other questions at this stage? We are getting close to the time of this session, so I'll move on here. Just in terms of the support that we can provide for you for any of these areas, there's 3 main options. I'll go through them briefly. Obviously, there's the documentation on the training or the live environment, which is where I went to in the very first place, in that area there. Just being able to click on the help button in the top right hand side. There is also a considerable amount of information on the literacy and numeracyforadults.com website, and I will show you that shortly. And also, again, the Assessment Tool Service Desk is very happy to help you with the one-to-one personal contact there that we have either through email or through an 0800 number. Within the training, same with the live environment, any of these tabs that you're on, you will see the help file link there, and that is a useful place to be able to start and to be able to download some of those files. That's just an example of what this page looks like there. You can see there's a large amount of information directly within the tool. Also worthy of pointing out, if you're right at that moment and stuck, you could actually click on log a support call or make a suggestion to us, and that would come straight through to the Assessment Tool Service Desk team as well, for us to investigate for you. There is another page, here we go. Within the Literacy and Numeracy for Adults website, clicking on Assessment for Learning here, and then you will see there's the knowledge base that we've built up there. And I will actually just jump through to that site for you right now. This information that I'm showing right here is also available on the Literacy and Numeracy for Adults website for the personal contact. So where do we go? Here we are. So from the home page here, clicking on Assessment for Learning, let's go straight to where this webinar PowerPoint and some of those files are kept. So on the right hand side there, you can see for the assessment tool. Now, as I said at the start of this area, we have the knowledge base. And within that knowledge base, we do have like a whole section for